Aladdin. Centuries ago, in far-off Arabia, there lived a poor tailor who had a son named Aladdin. Aladdin was an idle, thoughtless boy who liked to wander through the busy streets of the town, watching the camel trains arrive and talking to the merchants in the market. He did not like working in his father's shop. After his father died, Aladdin still refused to work. In spite of his mother's tears and pleadings, he spent his days playing in the warm sunshine, or resting against the palm trees in the shade. So they had to live on the pittance his mother could make by spinning, and often went hungry. One fine morning, Aladdin was playing in the streets as usual, when a tall stranger came up to him. The stranger asked if he were the son of Mustafa, the tailor. "Yes, I am," replied Aladdin, "but he died some years ago." "How did you know my name?" "It is written that I know much," replied the stranger and embraced him. "It is a happy day that I have found the son of my brother, for you are my nephew. Go and tell your mother that I am coming to visit her." Aladdin ran home to tell his mother about the stranger, and she was very surprised, for she did not know that her husband had a brother. But she prepared a meal for the stranger and welcomed him to her house. The truth was that the stranger was not Aladdin's uncle at all, but a wicked magician. The magician had seen Aladdin playing in the streets all day and decided he would use this lazy, foolish boy to help him. The magician told Aladdin's mother that he had been away for many years and had just returned from Africa. "I will look after you," he said, "you will never go hungry." Before he left, he gave Aladdin's mother some gold and told her to buy wine and food to celebrate his return. He promised that he would rent a market stall for Aladdin and help him by stocking it with merchandise. Next day, the magician took Aladdin to the finest shops and bought him magnificent clothes. Then, as evening fell, he led him to a beautiful garden outside the town. Fountains played and the scent from the brightly colored flowers hung heavy on the air. They looked at the fountains and the flowers and then went on to another even finer garden, and then another and another, until they came at last to a deep valley with mountains on either side. The magician told Aladdin to fetch sticks for a fire. He set them alight and threw a few drops of oil onto the blaze. A thick, dense smoke curled round them. When it cleared, they could see a large, flat stone on the ground with a brass ring in the center. Aladdin gasped in amazement and began to ask many questions, but the magician was in a hurry. "Aladdin," he said, holding his arm, "you are the only person in the whole world who can move this stone. Underneath, you will see some steps that lead into a cave. Go through the cave and you will find a garden filled with priceless treasures. Take as much as you like, but bring me the lamp you will see burning on the terrace." Aladdin was afraid, though he liked the idea of the treasure. It all sounded very strange, but he was too scared and bewildered to refuse. "One more thing," said the magician, "remember to pour the oil from the lamp before you bring it to me." He took a fine ring from his finger and gave it to Aladdin, saying that it would protect him from any evil. So Aladdin did as he was told and lifted the stone. It was exactly as the magician had said. He went down some steps and through a cave until he came to a garden filled with such beauty that Aladdin stood and stared in astonishment. He touched the grass and found that each blade was a leaf of jade and the flowers were diamonds, pearls and rubies that sparkled and almost danced in the enchanted garden. Quickly, he gathered some jewels together and then he remembered the lamp. Just as the magician had said, the lamp stood, the flame burning steadily, on the wall of the terrace. Aladdin emptied the oil and put it away inside his coat with the jewels and hurried through the cave and up the steps. The magician was waiting. "Quickly, boy, give me the lamp," he cried, and tried to snatch it from Aladdin. This startled the boy and he fell back down the steps. The magician flew into a terrible rage. He threw more powder and oil onto the now smoldering fire and pushed the stone back into place, sealing Aladdin inside. The magician's spells had shown him that this magic lamp would only work if it was given to him freely by another. He had thought Aladdin stupid enough to get it for him. But his plan had failed. Aladdin was terrified and he cried out for help. For many hours he tried in vain to push back the stone, but it was far too heavy. It became very cold in the cave and he rubbed his hands together for warmth. As he did so he touched the magic ring he had been given. At once a huge genie stood in front of him, so large that it seemed to fill the whole cave. The genie bowed low and said, "I am the slave of the ring. What is your command, master?" "I want to go home," said Aladdin, too surprised to be scared, and in a moment he was with his mother. She was overjoyed to see him and she was delighted with the jewels he had brought. "I am so hungry," said Aladdin, but his mother had nothing for him. "I will sell this old lamp and buy something," she said. She picked up some cotton and began to rub the lamp, for it was very dirty, and she thought it might fetch a better price if it was shining. At once an enormous genie appeared and asked her commands. The poor woman was terrified and begged Aladdin to take the lamp from her. Aladdin picked up the lamp and ordered the genie to bring him some food. The genie came back with a table laden with silver dishes and the finest food ever seen. But Aladdin's mother was still unhappy about the genie and begged him to part with the lamp and have nothing more to do with magic. Aladdin refused, and took the dishes to market where he sold them for so much money that they were never hungry again. The years passed and the lamp lay forgotten. Then one day, Aladdin saw the Sultan's daughter being carried in a litter through the streets. She was so beautiful that he fell in love with her and wanted to marry her. To show his love, he brought her the jewels he had taken from the garden and the Sultan was impressed for he knew their true value. "Bring me 40 times the number of jewels you have here and you may marry my daughter," he promised. Aladdin took the lamp and ordered the genie to bring him the jewels, and a magnificent horse for him to ride. He went to the palace on his fine horse, dressed in his best clothes, and with a long procession of slaves carrying all the jewels. The people in the streets looked on amazed. The Sultan was delighted and at once agreed to the marriage. Aladdin rubbed his lamp again for he wanted a magnificent palace for his bride. Next morning the Sultan looked out of his window and was astonished to see a wonderful new palace opposite his own. No one had ever seen anything so beautiful and the wedding feast lasted for weeks. Aladdin and his bride were very happy and the years passed quickly. One day, he was out hunting with his friends, when the magician returned to try once more to claim the lamp. He disguised himself as an old peddler, and walked the streets with a tray of lamps crying, "New lamps for old! New lamps for old!" The princess, who did not know the magic powers of Aladdin's lamp, wanted a bright new lamp, and called the peddler to the palace. "Here, take this," she said and gave him the magic lamp. The magician rubbed the lamp quickly, throwing the others to the ground. When the genie appeared, he commanded that the palace and the princess be taken to his home in Africa. Aladdin came home to find everything had vanished. The Sultan was very angry and ordered his execution. "Give me time to find the princess," Aladdin begged, and the Sultan gave him 40 days in which to bring her back. Aladdin was in despair and he wrung his hands in misery. As he did so he accidentally rubbed the magic ring which he always wore, and once more the genie of the ring stood before him. "Your wish is my command," he said, and Aladdin asked him to take him to the princess. "I can take you to her prison," said the genie, "but you must rescue her yourself. I do not have the powers of the genie of the lamp." So Aladdin found himself transported to Africa, and he hid by the walls of his palace. He could see the princess and called softly to her. She was very glad to see him again and told him that the magician treated her as a slave, and made her prepare all his food. Aladdin gave his princess a strong sleeping potion and told her to put it in the magician's dinner. When the magician had fallen into a deep sleep, the princess signaled to Aladdin and he slipped into the palace and picked up his lamp. He commanded the genie of the lamp to take the sleeping magician to the ends of the earth and leave him there forever. "Now," said Aladdin to the genie, "take me and the princess and the palace back to where we belong." When they were safely home, Aladdin ordered that a special case set with beautiful jewels be made for the lamp. When it was ready, he placed it inside, and locked it up very securely. Then he hid the key, and no one has ever found it to this day. Meanwhile, the lamp burned bright in its jeweled hiding place, and Aladdin and his princess lived happily ever after. The end.